all are released, and we'll turn to our next team.
All right. Thank you very much. Good luck.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, so long.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, and our last but not least would be State University of New York at Buffalo, Team 85.
Hello.
Good morning.
Hello. Do you have all your members here?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this is everybody that's gonna be here for now.
Okay. Outstanding. I'm going to start this off. So I saw your thing on the retractable rail guides, and that was, that really piqued my interest, but I didn't see any diagrams or anything like that. So can you, I know we can't do graphics here, but can you just talk a little bit about those rail guides and
Yes.
how they're mounted and, and so forth?
Yeah, so I think Sophia might be going to grab a prototype right now. But so we actually had a similar design fly on our last rocket in the 2019 competition. And they seem to work as far as we can tell. We haven't been able to get a direct like video observation of them retracting off the rail. But so she'll show you in a sec here. They're mounted. They're just epoxied onto the airframe, onto the bulkhead, and then we'll put a glass joint over some tabs that are machined out of the mounting block. You can see, I think she has this is a plastic prototype. They're machined out of aluminum typically. I could show you. You said you don't have screen sharing enabled?
Yeah,
Okay,
unfortunately,
that's fine.
limitation of the deal, but
Yeah, no problem.
so the blocks are mounted externally, or are they embedded
Internally.
like in your centering rings?
Yeah, they're mounted on top of the centering ring inside the airframe, and then it's just the guide itself that extends beyond the airframe during while it's on the rail. And then go ahead.
So this part is what's actually. Oh wait, hold on. Sorry. Okay, there we go. So this part is what actually sits
right.
in the plastic piece is what we integrate into the airframe, and then it's just enough so that like this is flush with the airframe. So this part will actually you'll have a pair of needle nose, and we'll pull it out. But I don't have a pair of needle nose.
Yeah,
You
that's
need
okay.
the
Yeah,
pliers to
okay.
get out.
I understand
And
where
normally
you're
a
going.
magnet sits in the back of this little thing, and it'll retract.
All right.
It's off the rail.
And there's some aluminum skid plates
Yeah.
that are mounted on the outside of the airframe, just to help keep the fiberglass from scraping against the aluminum guide or the rail. Excuse me.
If I can interrupt with a small point here, which actually has nothing to do with the project. Sophia, are you and Dakota in the same room? At the moment, Sophia, you're trying to talk, and it's Dakota whose mic is not muted. And
Yeah.
so
you can still hear me, right?
well, I could hear you better if it was your mic that wasn't muted and his that was.
Does this
There we go.
make it better? There you go.
Much better, yes.
Sorry about that.
No problem.
Thanks, Joe. Go ahead. You can. Next question's yours, sir.
Oh,
Go.
well, you kind of took one of them down, but that's okay. Drone payload. What is that?
I don't think we have that back there. So the idea of the drone payload is we wanted to make so it has cameras on it that will, as you're approaching like an uncharted or like an unmapped area, you'll be able to land with confidence that like what you're landing on is a solid, flat, even surface. So that was
Right.
the idea behind it was kind of like a Mars lander, or like on some sort of other interplanetary mission that we wouldn't really have a map of the surface. So as you get closer, it would have sensors on it that would allow you to see the surface and how it's if it's flat, That's what the goal was. But we wanted to see if we could make an ejectable payload for this project as well. I think that was just because we could. But
Well, yeah, because it just says
That's
drone
good
payload.
name.
I'm going, okay, is this a quadcopter? Is it an airplane?
Yeah.
Yeah, quadcopter.
Yeah, that was it.
And how are you getting it out without damaging? Because I've flown a number of variety of types of that. So how are you getting it out without damaging it? And
Nick,
where's
is
the
payload bay
control?
back here?
Yeah, not the payload bay. That's the avionics sled.
Okay.
The idea we had for ejection was it was going to be spring loaded and then tied back with a just sort of a high load fishing line essentially, or something like that. That was one of our first ideas. And then we were going to have essentially just igniters, because that's, you know, something we're familiar with, attached to them. And then we were going to burn. It was like a burn wire system, and so the wires would get burned through, which would allow the springs to push out the payload on off of a rail, and this would be timed with a computer, with the flight computer, so that it would happen after deployment of the main chute. So at 1,200 feet or whatever we changed, we think we were going to change it actually, but at main parachute deployment. So that was something that we were working on coming up with a system for.
I mean, it's a great idea. I'm just going, knowing what I do about drones is, you know, how are you going to get it stabilized when it pops out? Typically, they have to get their gyros set up. Like, so I mean, there's a whole slew of issues there. So I was going, "Whoa, this would be fun. How are you guys doing that?" You know?
Right.
So it's still a concept payload then.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
It's still a work in progress, and unfortunately, our teammate who was working on the project is MIA right now. So
Yeah, that's kind of a problem that we had.
50 lashes with a wet noodle. Okay. And then, Joe, you want to jump in? I mean, I have a minor question left, but go ahead.
Well, actually, my question is not over on the drones. It's on the recovery system. In your video, I'm wondering if this was a misspeak. You mentioned using pyrogen in the ejection charges.
I think it's Pyrodex.
That's
Yeah,
what I was.
Pyrodex.
Yeah.
My bad.
As if you did Pyrodex.
Yeah.
Have you tested your system?
Not yet, but we have used Pyrodex previously last year, and it performed well. But we do always ground test once the entire airframe is assembled.
How do you keep it contained so you get a good burn with it?
So what we do is we have like a how long are those tubes, Nick, that we have for the charges?
I don't know exactly. There, I can check.
There's something like an inch or
You can show. Yeah, you can show them.
Yeah, but so what we do is we first put in the ejection, we put in the Pyrodex, and then the E-match with it, and then stuff that down with cellulose insulation, and then put duct tape over the top of that. And so it all stays nice and compact and tight in flight. And then when it goes to burn, the longer tubes that we have allow it more time to be able to burn all that Pyrodex, so we get the full pressure that we want from the burn.
So just tape over the top is able to give you enough pressure to get a good burn.
Yes.
Okay. Do you have anything to keep the Pyrodex separate from the dog barf?
Not in particular.
Okay. Just something I've come across with black powder is that if the black powder and the dog barf mix a little bit, then I don't get as complete a burn, and I get sort of erratic results. So I like to put like a cork or something in between.
Yeah, that would be a good idea to have like a little spacer between the two.
Yeah.
Keep them separate.
You mention a baffle. You don't say anything about it. What's that? How's that constructed?
Yes.
So Sophia, could you hold that up again real quick? Sorry. I don't know. The baffles aren't attached. We have one in the back. I don't know if you want to. I don't know if you have time to grab it. It's just a little aluminum
Okay.
piece
Yeah,
that goes on
it's that
top.
little aluminum plate that basically
Yeah.
fits
If-
between the rods and over the top of the
Yeah.
charge well.
If you can see those two threaded rods and the charge well in there, yeah, it's an aluminum plate that just gets bolted into there.
Is that new with this year?
Yeah, that's
Yes.
something we haven't done before the baffle. That was a test that we are
Okay.
planning to perform before we fly
Where
this
is it?
model. It might be in the back in that sort of small body tube section. That's like a few inches thick. It's got a U-bolt in it.
That's all right. You don't
It's okay.
you don't
don't
have
worry
to
about
hunt
it.
it down. We got
I-
the idea.
I tried something similar not long ago using a fiberglass baffle.
Okay.
And when the ejection went off, it just blew right through the fiberglass. It was impressive. So make sure you've got good thick aluminum there.
Yeah.
Yeah. We were gonna do a ground test of that outside of our airframe before we flew it. So we were gonna to
Well,
verify.
that's no fun.
Well,
That's no-
ground test, but certainly in something that's very similar to your airframe, so that you get the
Yeah.
same environment.
Yeah.
Yes. It's on a fiberglass. It's the same mounting system.
Okay.
One of the things that I noticed both in your technical report and your presentation is you kind of glossed over your SRAD flight computer. Can you talk briefly about how you put that together or what the components were?
So the SRAM flight computer was actually a project that our last year, the person who was making it had just graduated. And then the person who took over the project is the same person who took over the payload drone. So
Okay.
I know like limited things about it, just that a previous lead had made all the boards himself, and he was just integrating the accelerometer and the barometer and then the GPS into his own board. It was a teensy system, and that's about all I know on that.
Also uses
Okay.
Karman filter, I believe, to integrate both those sensors
A Kalman
and do
filter?
filtering on it.
Yeah.
Kalman filter. Yeah.
It's basically, I think, just a revision of like what he had worked on the past 2 years, and we had flown at IREC before.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Ed or Joe, do you have additional questions?
Joe, go ahead if you got one.
I think I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, I was just
Okay,
curious if you had
yeah.
done a drag reduction analysis from having the magnetic slides versus not having them. Does the weight of the retractable slide compensate for the reduced drag from not having the lugs out, or is it just something that's a cool thing to do?
I think from looking at it, it's more cool to do than too impactful to the overall drag of the model from what I was seeing from the simulations. Yeah, because at this
Nothing wrong with that. I mean, it's always
That's a
fun to
good
see
answer.
new
Yeah.
ideas
at this
go out.
scale of rocket, it looked like the launch lugs aren't too big of a concern drag wise, but yeah, it is nice to always get any gains where possible.
Yeah. They are flight proven though. We did fly a similar model last time. They're revised slightly this year just for more sort of ease of integration and smoothness and whatnot, but same idea.
So how did you get the magnet to pull the aluminum back in it?
The actual rail guide section of the assembly has a bored hole in the back that a magnet gets epoxied into, and so there's neodymium magnets both in the rail guide and in the back plate of the assembly. So because obviously the aluminum isn't going to be attracted by a magnet. So
Yeah, I was just checking to see if that
yes,
was.
yes, there is a magnet inside it, and the outside is aluminum.
Yeah, I don't know if you can see
Yeah.
very well, but the magnet will sit glued onto this piece, and then there's another magnet back in this area. So when
Right.
no magnets.
Got it.
Okay. Okay.
And I'm
All
sorry
right.
to
Very good.
one last
Go ahead.
question when we're running over. You mentioned the drag simulation on those rail guides, and I didn't notice in your talk. What were you using for simulation?
I'm using Roxim and then also RES Arrow.
Okay. 'Cause I'm not familiar with either of those two. I was going to caution you that if you'd been using OpenRocket doesn't simulate.
Yeah, that's why we've moved away from OpenRock, because I also have found a lot of other discrepancies that I don't really like in it as well.
Okay.
You might,
Alright.
that sounds
Well,
like an offline
Our
conversation.
time's up.
Well, it
Yeah.
could be, but we.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would be curious to pursue that a little bit, but we don't have time now.
Yeah. We can look at your emails. We can put you guys together. And because Joe's one of the maintainers for OpenRocket. And so, that'd be a good way to help him get that program better. I would just make a kind of a funny observation. I don't know if it's funny, but you named your rocket Buff, and as an old B-52 pilot, and the nickname for that airplane is the Buff, which
Yeah.
stands for Big Ugly Fat Fellow or something like that. So I appreciated that.
Yeah, I'm a crew chief. I'm a crew chief for KC-135s, and a bunch of my friends work on B-52s.
Oh, outstanding.
So,
Yeah, now I got about 5,000 hours in Buffs.
That's awesome. Yeah.
All right.
Also Buffalo, so it works out.
Okay, well, thank you. Yep. Okay, well, thank you very much. We appreciate your time, and you all